what we're going to take a look at here is an application that is is some randomized data from some clients in the sales process, walk you through how we identify opportunities using ZEUS analytics, and then walk you through how a client that had previously gone through this sales process views their supply chain today. So when we receive this data to do these assessments, typically it's a mixed bag in terms of data quality, right? This is a ClickSense user session. We've all gotten our hands dirty with some data, right? That's not so pretty, but we're still tasked with creating analytics out of it, right? We see a range of different data quality from there's no way to identify what a part is to, oh, wow, look at that. We have manufacturer names and part numbers called out. And these are key data drivers, to powering improvement in the supply chain. Now, what this specific client wanted to improve was their mean time to repair, which is a major KPI in the facilities maintenance world. If you think about a refrigerator in a grocery store or a convenience store, if a refrigerator goes down and it's down for an extended period of time, you have potential spoilage, you have lost sales, so there's real impact to that. If it takes you 2 days to repair a refrigerator, that might be 2 days too late, right? So they wanted to really hyper focus on how many orders they could complete in 1 day and decreasing the mean time to repair, in line with increasing their percent of work orders completed in 1 day. So SDI worked with them to slice and dice this data. We produce dashboards that help us understand where some of the spend is going, who the top partners are, right? Because, taking the Pareto principle, you see, this particular file has $63 million of spend in it. With the top, say, 8 suppliers there is $46 million. So if we want to drive any operational change, we're going to need to focus on those suppliers as key partners, right? So as we progress through this, we can see what's common in the facilities maintenance world is they use truck stock, right? So a van filled with small parts and things that are commonly used for repairs. If an item is on a truck, it has the unit that is down, an air conditioner, a refrigerator, etc., has a much higher percentage chance of being repaired in the first day because the part was available in 1 day. You don't need to wait for shipping. You don't need to wait for any type of supply chain delays if it's on your van, right? So one of the ways SDI sliced this using our tools was to say, okay, well, based on how long it's taking you to repair units that have these items on order and how many times you've ordered those items, what could we identify as good candidates to put on a truck? And, we were able to identify, a pocket of spend here that has about 727 parts that could be potential candidates to put in a truck. Why is that? Well, you can see that all of these have a significant number of purchase orders cut for them. So that means that these are things that we keep using over and over again and we keep requesting. So if we had stock to pull on, whether it's in the form of a truck or even if it's local warehouse, locally stocked through a partner supplier, that would make it significantly easier to fix the units that are obviously these pieces are commonly needed to fix, right? So we identify these items and we understand that, listen, analytics should not be making all the decisions for you. They should be guiding you to your decisions. If some of these parts are too big to keep on a van, obviously we're not going to keep them on a van just because the analytics says so. This is where we get to the point where we work with our clients and say, okay, what would fit in your van? What would fit in your warehouse? What should we locally source? This helps us steer the conversation, right? So as we dug in deeper, the client really wanted to understand how can we get this work order 1 day completion percentage up. They had a corporate goal of say 80%. So if we could increase that work orders completed in 1 day by 9%, we would accomplish their corporate goals. So we developed some logic to help understand how much would the score change, the overall score change, if a given item was in stock every single time, if 100% of the orders that needed that item were fixed in 1 day. And the logic is that you take the heaviest hitting items and you fix all of them in 1 day, and you can meet your corporate goal because you're tackling a targeted unit of items, right? So we helped visualize this, and it's a little bit of a muddy chart here, but if we zoom in, we're going to try and capture, say, a realistic amount of numbers, say 500 items that could realistically fit on a truck. or that are worth parsing through to fit on a truck, right? So let's see how many that pulls up. So maybe I went 1 decimal too far. There you go, 251. Okay, so these 251 very high volume items that have a significant pocket of spend, considering, you know, how small of a sliver of the items they are. If all of these items were in stock every time you needed them, your work order within 1 day completion would increase by almost 17%. Now, understanding each item is a small piece, and there's 251 items, right? But if you think about that, you could accomplish your goal just by getting all of these items in stock consistently. Now, there are some data quality concerns that, you know, as an example, if manufacturer names and part numbers are not entered consistently, properly, with the right level of detail, you know, these could be blanket orders. You know, NA isn't a real part number, as an example. So clearly there's some holes that you can poke in this, right, if you really dig in. But the idea is that we can drive the conversation regardless of the quality of the initial data and help implement a solution that, again, will get you to your corporate goal, to your stated goal of having your mean time to repair reduced and your work order within 1 day completion percentage increased. Okay? If you think about that in the context of the supply chain, this all relates to these lead times being extended that we've seen, right? Some 2-day delivery services aren't 2 days anymore, right? Some reliably, you know, 1 day courier services, it's just not the case anymore given the disruption that we've seen, right? So this is all related to these lead time delays, and companies really want to wrap their head around, okay, there's lead time delays, I still can't have my refrigerator go down. So how do I mitigate that? And this is a way to actionably answer that through analytics. Additionally, you know, we wanted to check out some commentary on what this client was experiencing in their day-to-day, in their data. What were they seeing in their lead times? And just, you know, I thought it was really interesting to point out that just by charting, you know, the average work order, the average amount of time a work order was open over time, based on the work order open date, we can see that it's steadily increasing, you know, and frankly, you know, there's spikes, you know, in summer during the COVID pandemic, but even before the COVID pandemic, you could see that this has been a challenge for years, frankly, within this industry. So this is a very pressing problem, and you know, it's a very important one for SDI to solve to, you know, ensure our supply chains are operating at peak efficiency. And then finally, regardless of how much, you know, we want to drive these efficiencies and have these items in stock, cash is king, and, you know, we need to make sure we can do this without blowing our budgets, right? So SDI also has a network of partner suppliers that we use APIs to communicate with, and we can quickly compare pricing from, you know, an external client or prospect to benchmarks that we have available, and understand not only can we do this for you, but we can do this for you at a savings. So we won't only be busting your budgets, we'll actually be saving you money. So, you know, these improvements come along with an ROI that's real, in addition to the ROI of a better customer experience, the organic growth you'll experience by being, you know, at the top of a given industry, right? So it's really interesting to be able to take prospects through this sales journey using analytics instead of replying to an RFP with 10,000 items and crossing your fingers, right? There's a really big difference. When you can show a client a view, or a prospect a view of themselves that they've never seen before, this is their own data, right? So, and what's really funny is I've even done calls with some of these folks where they have Click, or they have, you know, one of the competitors, and they have this data. So in reality, like we all know, if you have the expertise and you have the tool and you put in the time, you can build anything. The key with SDI is we have the expertise and we have some layering technologies that I'll, you know, show you in the next application here that really enhance the ROI that you get out of a solution like this, out of this digital control tower. So again, this is part of the sales process. And from here, we're going to take you through the journey of a client that, you know, has come on board. Again, data is randomized, numbers are not real, right? This is all privacy protected and scrambled. But we want to show you a realistic representation of a supply chain that has technicians ordering through a mobile application, right? So they've implemented, you know, the SDI solution. And now they're getting readouts of visualizations and charts and better understanding of their supply chain, the lead times, where the money is being spent due to these process improvements, where previously, some of the initial commentary when the client was coming on board was, we don't know what we're buying and who we're buying it from. Now, obviously, that's more true with some vendors than others, but in general, that's not a great proposition to be in, especially when you're spending a significant amount of money on these things. So again, randomized data for an SDI client that's been through this solution. You can see this is a similar dashboard that we saw in the sales app. We're tracking total spend, number of suppliers in the program, number of active technicians, so people who are ordering through the program, how many items, how many purchase order lines, etc. And we can see just at a very high level here, spend by location. So these locations have spent a lot compared to the average, right? I mean, some more than double the average. And, that's interesting, right? And we can see there's a long tail here because there's, thousands of stores, right? Now, something that's interesting about this is, when do these things become anomalous, right? These are facilities maintenance jobs, right? So a pump could break, an air conditioner could break, a toilet could break. It's interesting to know, hey, is there an area of the country or a particular store or a few stores where the plumbing bills are way higher than all the other stores? And why is that happening? Are people going in there and breaking the toilets? Do we have a bad asset further upstream that's causing breakage downstream? That particular scenario, can be true. If you're fixing the same air conditioner unit 10 times within a year, that probably tells you the air conditioner is on the way out. And as you collect this data, you can begin to predictively look at things and say, hey, you've repaired this belt. When this belt needs repair, generally the unit only has a year left, and you can plan for succession of the asset, right? So just even at a very high level, I'm sure you can envision what this allows you to do compared to not having this visibility, right? So as we walk through this a little bit, I mentioned adoption. So, part of the SDI program is we work in conjunction with our clients, but ultimately our clients purchase through our systems, right? So if spend goes around our program, if clients aren't purchasing through our program, they don't get the benefits. SDI isn't able to provide that level of service that we're contracted to. So we develop dashboards that let people know, hey, just so you know, the technicians in these stores, none of them have placed an order through the SDI system yet. Now, this program has been implemented for a little bit of time, so my guess is that they're ordering around the program, right? And you can see there's multiple technicians assigned to each store, so you can have different adoption levels. But ideally, the adoption level would be 100%. And to be fair, you can see that if we look, a lot of them have it at 100%. But this is identifying, our worst offenders here, where we can target and say, listen, we know adoption is 88.6%, and that's really good. But if we were to highlight, say the worst X amount of stores, well, now it's only at 58%, and at these stores, it's below 50 and 0, right? So these are analytics that allow us to say, so what do we do? Do we follow up with the manager who's in charge of those technicians or in charge of that store and, reach out and ask why they're not ordering? Did they attend their training? You can see here that there's some trainings that we record and ask that they attend, right? So these are different. This provides the information needed for us to understand if the program is working to peak efficiency and root cause when it's not, right? So that's really interesting because it's not a typical supply chain use case. However, you're not getting the benefits of our supply chain use case if you're not adopting. Something else I thought that was really interesting we were able to do through this program is develop a supplier scorecard that, truly gave out a grade based on requirements set in our contracts, which, if anyone's had to deal with contract administration through procurement and supply chain, sometimes just getting the key performance indicators, the data to, have the conversations with the supplier is challenging in and of itself. It doesn't allow you to have those conversations empowered by the data. And that's what we're trying to do by proactively generating these scorecards, sending them out to suppliers with a newsstand via end printing, and helping them understand how they're performing based on their expectations. So we developed a supplier scorecard here that, it takes into account on-time delivery based on a 5-day requirement, on-time delivery based on a first promised, date based on a confirmation, what % have been confirmed, what percent received an advanced shipment notice, how many days it takes to get the ASN, how many days it takes to deliver, and the percentage that have a verified tracking number. So part of SDI's initiative to automate is we've developed some significant automations based on receiving a tracking number. We can trip multiple PO statuses and triggers in our system that allow orders to progress where previously we would have to manually perform those tasks, right? So getting a tracking number is really important, and it's a new metric that we're tracking on these scorecards, and including it as part of their overall letter grade really helps drive it home that this is important. It helps us drive efficiency. It'll help you drive efficiency because we won't need to reach out and ask you where an order is if you provide us a tracking number in the proper format that our APIs can reach out and follow the order around, right? So all of that comes together to form our supplier score. And you can see if we pick a vendor, here's a vendor that actually has an A, right? So overall there's a D, but let's see what an A looks like, okay? So for this vendor, right, there's $110,000 in spend, so perhaps not, the largest in the program. But we can see, that 334 stores have ordered from them. They have a relatively low on-time delivery percentage based on the 5 days. But if they tell us something's coming on a certain date, they're pretty good about it. They've confirmed almost 99% of orders, and that over 99% of orders, including giving us advanced shipment notifications and verified tracking numbers 99% of the time. So while the volume with this vendor is not super high, they are a very high performer. And as our procurement department starts to make strategic decisions based on supplier grades and supplier scores, I would expect this supplier to become more integrated with our program, get more spend, and be given more opportunities because they're performing very well in line with the contract. While they're doing well, as an example, delivering within 5 days seems to be a challenge, and that's an area that they could improve, right? And if we go the other way, if we wanted to look at, say, worst offenders, if you will, let's give this a second. There's a lot of data. We'll limit this just for the sake of quick loading. Here we go. All right, the supplier got a 19. And we'll roll back the date filter. All right, so this is another vendor that doesn't have a lot of spend. Perhaps they don't have a lot of spend for good reason because, they're overall a D. So they're getting 63% in their on-time delivery, but unlike the previous vendor, they're only delivering 5.9% of the time when they promised. They're confirming a lot of orders and ASNing and giving us tracking on about 77% of the orders. So overall, their score is a D because 1, 2, 3 are underperforming. And the on-time by first promise is significantly underperforming, causing the supplier to get a low score. Now, they don't have very much spend, and like I said, that might be for good reason. If this does not improve, I would expect it to stay that way. If it does improve, they could be given the opportunity to participate in more bids because, they're driving adoption to the program, right? So this enables us to have those conversations and make strategic decisions aided by data. One last thing to show here is, we mentioned the benchmarking previously and, how things, we have to get these things, but they also have to be at a reasonable price, right? We can't just pay out our nose in order to get these things on time based on lead times being extended, right? So we generated some analysis that shows us the pricing paid over time on items. And here we've got it sorted by, number of orders. So if we take a look at this item as an example, we can see that this is a popular item. We've purchased $768,000 worth of it from 2 suppliers. 411 technicians have purchased it. What's interesting here is that you can see the price slowly kind of goes up, goes back down, goes back up again. And that's common, right? You negotiate contracts, you have pricing for a set amount of time. But then if you take a look, it starts going up and down and up and down and up and down. And if you look, we start purchasing it from a second supplier. And that second supplier comes at a higher cost. Now, there could be a reason this could be because we're seeing extended lead times. So we're going to secondary sources and we know they're more expensive, but we need the part because we can't have, the unit fail, right? So this could be a reflection of that, and it could simply be informing you on your behavior. Or this could be someone who's buying the goods from a non-preferred supplier, and therefore this can help you drive compliance. This can help you reach out to the buyer, understand why they're doing it, and take corrective action if needed. All in all, I'm hoping this showed you the journey through ZEUS Analytics from a prospect who wants to get their items more quickly and fix things within a single day, right? To a live client who is going through some of that, right? If you look at the scorecard, the metrics that we're tracking are exactly related to our first call fix rate and our number of days to repair, right? If you're delivering on time as promised, if we have tracking numbers so we can understand where orders are, all of those things will help us better plan to keep inventory, understand what inventory to keep, understanding the inventory we're not keeping, how long will it take, so we can plan those jobs better and make sure we're not wasting window time, drive time of technicians driving to a store, getting there and not having the parts, right? These are very real things that cost companies money, right? So, and then finally, we reach the benchmarking piece where a client would love to do all this without increasing their costs. And we show not only the ability to save money over time by implementing better sourcing practices and understanding your supply chain better, but enable you to track that and understand how your contractual prices are trending over time.